You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Park Rangers, Locked On Cougs here. I want you to follow me down the thought process I got here at the start of this as I look at the Villanova teams of like 2015, 16, 17, 18. And the last run, a handful of teams out of the Houston Cougars. Because if you have not been following the NBA playoffs, I get it. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But the New York Knicks are on a crazy hot streak. They're up 2-0, having played both their first two games in Boston, heading back to the Madison Square Garden Mecca to play Game 3 on Saturday. Here's the deal. Villanova had Jalen Brunson, and there were stars and in college. They go to the pros. Ultimately, they've all found their way back to, or I guess 3 of the 4 from that team have found their way back to the Knicks, right? Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and that's name is escaping me, right? Mikal Bridges, right? Those 3 on the Knicks right now. I kept wanting to say Dante DiVincenzo because he was on the Knicks, no longer on the Knicks. But they found their way to New York. They're playing together. They're winning. It's an electric story. The Nova Knicks continues to be a thing, right? Shout out to the newest Pope, also a Villanova alum. We have an American Pope. He went to Villanova. As I tweeted out, let's have between Fertitta in Italy and the Pope being a Nova guy, let's get Houston versus Nova in the Coliseum. But a video quote that's kind of gone a little viral is that in 2016, about when Villanova's win their first of 2 titles in 3 years with this core of athletes, these core basketball players, Stephen A. Smith of ESPN was, on First Take, doing his First Take opinionated things. And he said the interesting thing to him, or something to that extent, about the Villanova team was that they didn't have any real pro prospects. Quote, Villanova doesn't have a real pro prospect on this entire squad. Now, those athletes are all pros. Right now, admittedly, that was like at the front end. Stephen A. Smith says in 2016, they had a crazy buzzer beater championship game win in 2016. 2017, they get upset in the second round. 2018, they had a big championship win over Michigan, the same Jordan Poole Michigan that we don't talk a whole lot about. Villanova clearly had pro prospects on that team, but he just missed it. Many people just missed it. They thought they were too small. And Jalen Brunson was a 6'2 freshman. Jalen Brunson was a 6'2 freshman point guard. Josh Hart was a 6'4 kind of wing, kind of forward, right? Mikal Bridges is a 6'6 wing that has a 7'1" wingspan. DiVincenzo is a 6'4 wing perimeter, but not really a point guard or even a 2 guard. And the assumption was like that's a great college team with a great college coach in Jay Wright, and that's how that thing's going to finish, which feels really familiar. Guys that are maybe a little undersized to pros, that compete, that fight to win, that play a good, hard-nosed style of basketball, that are dominant in many ways on the college scene with a great coach, being told they're not pro prospects. It feels to me like there's a lot of crossover and similarity between that run and what Houston's been doing. Now, obviously, a key difference is Houston was 65 painful seconds from winning a national title this year. That Nova team won 2 titles in 3 years. I don't think this Houston run is over for what it's worth. We've been talking a lot. We'll continue to talk through next season about how this is not going backwards anytime soon. However, that is, I guess, a key difference. The tournament can be kind of crapshooty at times. Who knows who you get to play, when you get to play, who's healthy, who's sick, who's whatever, right? But that, I guess, is a key difference. But like if I were to tell you that Jalen Brunson would be comparable to a Jamal Shead, that Dante DiVincenzo would be comparable to an Emmanuel Sharp, that Josh Hart would be comparable to, I don't know, insert any of the handful of guards they'd play that spot, Marcus Sasser or whatever, right? Mikal Bridges be comparable to whether it's Jarris as the great length and defense, or we're not quite to a point where JoJo Tugler plays on the perimeter as much as Mikal Bridges does, obviously, but something like that with the wingspan involved, right? It doesn't feel that crazy to think that this actually could be a very mirrored image. Now, Jalen Brunson took some NBA time to develop, right? He was a second fiddle in Dallas and whatever, and had his run when Luka missed some playoff time, and then it was like, oh, he's the guy. And I think it's New York, and like for my money, this is not an NBA show. He's having one of the greatest Knicks runs you've ever seen. He's going to go down as one of the most beloved Knicks of all time. I don't know if Jamal Shead does that in Toronto or if he needs to get moved, right? Like Jalen did to get out of Dallas for that or whatever, right? But from a program to program perspective, this building a strong, solid winner with guys that are, quote, not big enough to be pros, end quote, or not real pro prospects, end quote, and then watching them do that anyway feels like a very serious potential future for this Houston Cougar basketball program. Again, if I were to tell you that in 4 or 5 years, Jamal Shead was making all-star teams and was winning playoff games and was making big shots in those playoff games, you wouldn't be shocked. If I were to tell you that Marcus Sasser is making big moments in the playoffs happen in 3, 4, 5 years, you would not be shocked. LJ Cryer knocking him down, you would not be shocked. Cryer might be the longest stretch in terms of like physical build out of the bunch, and he was the high point man both seasons he was at Houston. It's not a crazy concept that he finds a way to be a 3-and-D type of guard. We saw how much better he got at defense in his 2 years at Houston on the defensive side of the ball. That is, it would not be crazy to me to see Emmanuel Sharp go wherever he gets drafted or wherever he gets taken a year from now. He's not in the combine or anything like that this year, right? It would not be crazy for me to see. I don't think Milo stays in draft this year. I think he goes back to Houston and then goes to the draft the year later, but it's the same kind of thing where he ends up going in the second round and get told he's, can't do this, can't do that, or what he can't do. And then the people forget, what he can do is play winning basketball. That's the common thread here is all of those Villanova guys played winning basketball. We're told they weren't pros, end up being fine. All these Houston Cougar guys play winning basketball. I don't, just a connection that I was making when I was seeing these things play out. The Nova Knicks are hot right now, and so you're seeing the connections and the people pulling up the videos of Stephen A. Smith saying that back in 2016 and whatever. And it just, I DM'd 3 different people that talk Villanova on Twitter that I follow to say, hey, do you want to come on and talk with this guy? I think this comparison will hold for the next few years. I just think there's something there. I think there's something similar in crossing this over, but maybe I'm crazy. It wouldn't be the first time. Speaking of crazy, Houston's got a chance to make some noise in baseball this weekend. Say what? That's the next segment. But first, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Monarch Money. Now, if you ever check your bank account, you wonder like, okay, where'd all my money go? Dining out, online shopping, Mother's Day this weekend. You probably spent some dough on that. Don't lie to yourself. It's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, full visibility control over all of your finances. But it's not just a budgeting app. Monarch Money is complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. You can stop managing your money and start building real wealth. I teach, I coach, I podcast, lots of money going into lots of, pause, not a whole lot of money, but coming from a bunch of different places, one thing, right? And all that's easier to manage on Monarch Money. You have it all in a single place. You can set goals, stay on the same page, start accumulating wealth and building wealth without all of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first full year.